because I have some people who are absent, and plus this is going to be the first new big unit we've done really since Caesar. Yes, I know we did Full Metal, but that was more of an intro into what we're about to be doing. So today we're going to be going over a new concept called Allegory, and then we're also going to be going to go get the Lord of the Flies books at the end of the period, the last 10 minutes of class. And then we'll be starting to read it on Wednesday when I have you guys involved. Okay. So really quick before we get started, we don't have, a long period, but it's pretty close to like a 300 period. It's only 8 minutes on Earth. Normally I have you for 58. Today I only got you for 50. So what did you guys say? So what is one thing that you would take if you were stranded on the desert, right? For survival. Books are great and all, but I don't know where you would take something probably to help me to understand it. What did you guys write? What did you guys say? What is how about you? A lighter? Okay. Brian, how about you? Light also. Ronna, what did you say? Like a machete almost?
Yeah, the machete.
Okay. All right, and then let's do one more person. Lover, how about you? Very practical. Glad nobody said like headphones or anything, so that's good. All right. Okay, so we are starting our Lord of the Flies unit. So the author of it was William Golding. This was written about in the 50s, so it was after World War II, which you can kind of see the influence because when you start reading it on Wednesday, it takes place like during the war. So that was still like fresh on everyone's minds when he wrote this. Okay, so Allegory. I'm not going to make you take notes because again, all these are on Canvas, so you guys can just reference this if you guys need to. I do want you guys looking up here, paying attention. Ashley, so up here. So Allegory is a story in which there are, it's basically symbolism, but if you like applied it to an entire story. So we've talked about like symbolism in like Full Metal, for example, like his arm, right? Or the Philosopher's Stone. We talked about how those individual objects in the story are symbolic. Now we're going to make it bigger picture. We're going to talk about how the story itself is symbolic of something bigger. So there's different types of allegories that we'll talk about. So a lot of times too, characters inside the allegory will be symbolic of something too. So they might represent like an idea within the allegory, within the big symbol. So basically it's like taking the entire story and saying like, this is one big symbol, right? And then you have like the individual pieces of the story that help add to that idea, to that meaning. So I'll kind of show you guys what I mean in a little bit. But here are some different types of allegories. First, you have political allegory. So political allegory is basically like if you apply political allegory to Lord of the Flies, which we'll talk about, is again, it was at the end of World War II. You had America and then communist Russia, the Soviet Union, they were starting to gain more power after World War II. We started entering the Cold War with them. Have you guys talked about the Cold War at all in world history yet, or no? Yay, nay? What's that? Yeah. Not really? Okay. Does anybody know what the Cold War is? Have you heard of it at least? You've heard that phrase, yes? So why do you think it was called a Cold War? What made it cold? It wasn't like where it was located. What do you guys think? Why was it called a Cold War? I mean, you look like you want to say something. You just had that look on your face. Like, I totally want to say something right now. So why do you think it was a Cold War? It wasn't like where it was located. Sorry, one second. Okay, go ahead. First of all, World War II, we knew, like, Nazi Germany, we were fighting Japan, we were fighting a couple other countries too that were mixed in there. That was like that was what we would consider like a hot war, okay? So this was a Cold War. So the difference between a Cold War and a hot war is, in a Cold War, you're not actually like fighting. We're not sending soldiers to Russia, they're not sending soldiers here or anything like that. Basically, it was a war through technology. Who can create the biggest bomb? Who can create the best technology? The whole reason why we went to the moon was actually because we were trying to. What is a rocket ship essentially? What is a rocket ship? Think about it. If I were to launch a rocket ship and it crashed into something, what is that? It's basically a missile without a bomb in it. It's people in it instead of a bomb. So the whole reason why we sent the rocket to the moon was to say, look at this giant rocket we can make. If we could send something to the moon, we could send a rocket anywhere. So it's basically like, it was like a warning almost. So that's essentially what a Cold War is. So we're going to see different characters like Ralph and Jack, who obviously you will meet as we read it, who will represent two different sides, two countries that are like butting heads. So that's the political allegory. So if we were to read Lord of the Flies as a political allegory, we would talk about how the different characters could represent different countries and different qualities of those countries, right? Another way to look at it is atomic weapons had just been used for the first time in war when America is the only country, first of all, to drop nuclear weapons on any other country in war. So we bombed, I know it's Hiroshima, I forgot what the other city was on it. Nagasaki. Thank you. What is it, Nagasaki? Yeah. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the two cities that were bombed during World War II. Now, we can also look at the characters and like the way that they like are attacking each other as a symbol of atomic warfare. Like everything's building until like boom, big blow up, right? Now, there's not going to be an actual nuclear bomb on the children or anything like that. So it's all going to be just representative of it. Another way to look at it is through religious allegory. So specifically, if we were to look at it, it's the island that they end up on could be an allegory for the Garden of Eden. And if you're unfamiliar with like the Garden of Eden, it's essentially a creation story in the Bible that's basically about two people, Adam and Eve, who were put in paradise. They basically lose that paradise because they commit original sin, which is them eating from the tree of knowledge. So the story, like I said, we'll get into these ideas as we read the story. Now, this is the one that I really want to hit on because this is one we're probably going to talk about more as we read Lord of the Flies, and that's Freudian. Has anybody heard of Sigmund Freud? Just raise your hand. You don't have to tell me who he is, but have you heard of Sigmund Freud? Okay, so famous famous for his ideas on in psychology. Some of his ideas have been kind of proven wrong over time, but he still, a lot of the ideas he had were still very interesting. He had some interesting ideas that revolved around sexuality, like Oedipal complex, which I won't get into. It's kind of not really relevant to what we're going to be doing, but if you ever hear of Oedipal complex, it's referencing Freud. But the thing that we're really going to be looking at is the idea of personality. So you have three different personalities that fit into all of this, right? So you have id, ego, and superego. So basically what those are, here. Okay. So this is an iceberg. Granted, I know it's kind of like a weird looking iceberg, but this is an iceberg, okay? And then this white here is like the tip above the water, right? Everything else you've always heard like tip of the iceberg, right? It's referencing that the iceberg has a little bit sticking out, and the majority of it is underwater that you can't see, right? So this is basically like how our minds are. So this is like this iceberg. You're probably watching. But the conscious part of our brains is a part of our brain that we can actually think about. That's the part that we're aware of. Like, I know I'm drinking this Starbucks right now. I'm aware of this. It's cold. I can think about it. I am, 4 hours, school starts 4 hours late. I'm still late. I'm aware of that for like 5 or 6 weeks for some reason. But anyways, but conscious are the ideas and thoughts we're aware of. Everything below that is stuff that is automatically firing off in our brain. Like when you touch a stove, what happens? And it's on. Burn yourself. What do you do though? Like move your hand away from it, right? So automatically your brain like moves it away. You don't like have to think about it. Your brain just automatically reacts. It's like a chemical reaction almost, right? So with this, we have ego is a part of our brain that we know about, okay? So that's basically the idea of like everything that we like to think of. It's our identity, it's our perception of reality. This is like, I know that the weather is cool today, it's gonna be hot later probably, but it's all things that we are aware of. So superego is a little bit more below the surface. Superego is where you have like your morals, right? So those aren't like necessarily like physical things that we can touch, but superego is like the part of your identity that deals with ethics, right or wrong, right? And then id is kind of that like hot kind of mentality. So that's this part is the part that just like reacts to things. So you're not thinking about anything, it's just, it automatically happens. So id, pleasure, pain, anything like that, unconscious urges and desires. So this is the part of your brain that's like the most like evolutionary probably as far as like, this is how like we evolved over time. So the id would be again, just like your reaction. So reactions and urges, like I'm hungry, I need to react. This is like survival kind of mode. Superego is again that more philosophical, moral kind of part of your brain. And then the ego is again the part that you're aware of, your self-identity, what you feel as a person. So basically, like we're gonna have different characters in Lord of the Flies that represent the id, that primal instinct. The superego, the more like moral, like trying to do good for the world. Here's a word for you. Altruistic, which basically means you do things for others without like expecting something in return. You just do good for the sake of doing good, essentially. And then again, the ego is more of just like dealing with reality and that sort of self-identity thing that I talked about. So here is an example from Julius Caesar, something that we've already read. So let's say that Julius Caesar, the entire story in the play itself, not the character necessarily, but the play, represents ambition and politics. Okay? So here are the messages that kind of fit into that based off what happens in the story. If you're overly ambitious, you're going to make enemies. Obviously, we can see that in multiple characters. We can see that in Caesar. We can see that even in Cassius and Brutus, because even though Brutus kind of did stuff for, the common good, it was still like partially ambition to get rid of Caesar. You're going to lose friends, okay? Caesar made enemies out of people who were his friends. Even going back as far as Pompey, he became ambitious, he lost that friend. He lost his supporters or the people who he worked with because he became too ambitious. Another message from this that you can get, that you can see in the story, is that there's always going to be somebody to replace you. Now, it doesn't happen specifically in the play, but I told you guys that Mark Antony eventually gets taken out by Octavius. So it's always, there's like one domino after another getting taken out because of ambition. So what I want you guys to do is I'm going to let you guys work in groups of 3 or 4. If you want to work by yourself or as a partner, I would say no more than 4. I'll let you guys decide who you're going to work with. But you're going to come up with ideas for Full Metal Alchemist, since that was the last thing we just read. So I want you guys to come up with 3 topics that would be allegory. So here are the categories. So religious, political, or Freudian. You're going to pick 3 topics within those categories. So that doesn't mean 3 each, but just total. So you can find 2 topics within political, 2 topics within Freudian, 2 topics within religious, and then 1 other. But so 3 total topics, and then for each topic, write down 2 messages. So going back to that Caesar thing, so here was my topic, ambition and politics. So you come up with 3 topics for Full Metal Alchemist. So 3 things that could be symbolized in Full Metal Alchemist. So 3 things that the story could be a symbol for. So if Julius Caesar was a symbol for ambition and politics, what were a couple of messages? So again, I already went over these, but you would just have 2 messages. Again, I know I have 3, but I just wanted to give you more examples. So you're going to come up as a group with different ideas of what could Full Metal Alchemist symbolize? What could that story be a symbol for? And you're just going to come up with 3 phrases like this. So go ahead and just start there, and then we'll think of the messages afterwards. So go ahead, get in the groups. Again, if you want to work by yourself, you can. That's fine too. But go ahead and move. Yes. 3 topics. And then for each topic, you're going to come up with 2 specific examples or messages that go into the topics. Yeah, you guys about 8 minutes to try and think of these. So come up with your 3 topics first. So yeah, so mine up there is an example of you can make it political. You can do there's definitely some religious. You can if you want to talk about it, and I know you guys haven't done that much of it, what characters can represent ego or super ego? So it would be again like that. What characters represent that inner primal instinct? They don't care about right or wrong. They just care about fulfilling their desires and stuff. 3 topics. 3 topics, yeah. Yeah, just start off with the topics for right now. Don't worry about the messages unless you get time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like trying to get Sky down so we could like something like the Atlantic stuff. He wanted military power for something. Because he was saying something about how he wanted power. She lost both her voice his whole sound. Yeah. No, that's nothing. Sky did not lose his because that was part of his culture. He was only one left, like part of his yeah, but no, it's there's a village left. They lived in the city. Not just like a little population. Yeah, Chinese.
Okay.
They
do have some slides on campus. Let me just make sure it's published.
What's her name? The good Rose? Yeah, didn't she lose her no, that's they say. Didn't she lose her mother and father during the war? When she was like doctors and stuff. And they died.
Are we choosing one person or team up with, or is it all?
right now you're coming up with ideas, and then we're probably not going to finish this today just because the class is short. We have to get it booked. But tomorrow you're going to pick one that you like create.
Were you good?
What? No, with your partner.
You did a switch.
Yeah. Okay.
Stop it.
Okay, you see that? Okay, all right. That's a good example.
Okay, then.
You have to come up with something. Yeah, they can be about sacrifice.
I don't know if it's free.
And then lost, you know, who lost, and then ambition. One of you.
Yeah, but yeah, so just what is the same about but it either needs to be something that's really good story, or it can be
So ambition is a strong desire to do or to accomplish or achieve something. So typically requires determination and hard work. So ambition could be like how you know ambition and power hungry sound like similar.
They are similar.
Very similar. But we can get ambition and power hungry. The way that with the meaning between ambition not getting it like you know, game GAI. That's also like power.
you got the stuff.